Good afternoon and welcome. I would like to start today's presentation with 3 questions. The first one goes as follows, and as we have done in the previous videos, I would like you to answer them as honestly as you can to yourself. The first question is, do you recognize deep inside yourself that you are not truly generous or kind? Or see it reflected in neglecting to help others when you get nothing in return? The second question is, do you clench your fist hard when it comes to spending? And the third and last question is, do you struggle trying to do good and truly feeling good at the same time regarding to giving to others? Today we are answering these questions through the tactical use of generosity and kindness. And on this subject, I would like to dedicate this presentation to nothing more but the world's first conceived billionaire in 1916 American businessman, philanthropist, and industrialist, Mr. John Davison Rockefeller. We'll be disclosing this as some sort of biography, but again, it's mostly focused on the results of his life. And I would like to start by mentioning, just like many others, Mr. Rockefeller had very humble beginnings or origins. And starting with family, Mr. Rockefeller truly had a terrible dad. But he also had a great mother. His dad is also known through history as a deceitful man, really, that would engage in all sorts of businesses that had a selfish nature, as he always operated through his entire life with a negative oriented paradigm. For those who have not watched the other videos or are not well acquainted with what a paradigm means, a paradigm is the mental program in which we operate and live. We all humans live in patterns. Everything we do is a pattern. The skeleton of our lives is a pattern, just disguised with different narratives. And to his father, being that his goals were always oriented in a selfish way, his results were therefore always negative in the big picture of things. Now, I personally do not know, and I did not engage in much of the research regarding the mother of Mr. Rockefeller with the name of Eliza. But what we do know is what she passed down into Mr. Rockefeller, as she did not just have a positive oriented paradigm in her own life, but most importantly, and this is an attribute that always goes together with a positive oriented paradigm, is that she always had a positive mental attitude. A positive mental attitude. And the combination of these two led for Mr. Rockefeller always positive results, because ultimately he chose to align better with the teachings of his mother, being that his father was absent many, many times. And it is known in his life that at some point he required of the economical assistance of his father for engaging or making a realization of his first investments a reality, but that did not go any further than that. Secondly, and very important to note, is that on his youth, Mr. Rockefeller stated that he would acquire, create, obtain, whatever word you prefer to use, into amount $100,000. Money back then. Right now this amount is that of $3.37 million, and that he would live up to 100 years. I would like you to think about this. On a previous entry we had talked about goal cards, or making a statement to yourself in which you would engage in the repetition of a thought, of an idea, through the use of your higher faculty of memory, with purpose, coming from a strong desire of your heart, that will help you manifest these kind of things. What was the end result of Mr. Rockefeller? His end result in life was that at the point of his death, his net worth was that of $1.4 billion. Money back then, which right now this is $435 billion, and lived up to 97 years old. What is this telling us? This is telling us something very clear. That is, that through the use of his positive oriented paradigm and a positive mental attitude, he always found positive results. And in very fact, the end result of his life was extremely positive and aligned with the chief definite aim that he had declared himself as a youth. He did not give up. He did not lose faith. And he showed great persistence into making this a reality. Now, for the next section, we will talk about how exactly this happened. And I will invite you to focus your attention on the ideas that will be shared rather than the step-by-step of his doings, which also are important. And you can greatly benefit out of that if you're planning to perhaps create a business plan, or just you're targeting something else in life. Now, Mr. Rockefeller, he was a smart lad, well behaved, and he had a strong faith in life. And he learned how to use tactically that of generosity and kindness. Perhaps you will think that is but being not genuine, the opposite of being genuine, being fake, or not striving to fulfill any of that if you use them tactically. But I invite you to take a look at this step by step. So he used the through tactical reasons or reasoning of generosity and kindness. He developed a system that benefited everyone, including himself. And this started as follows. First and foremost, Mr. Rockefeller was known through the industry of crude oil at the beginning. He had engaged in other kinds of businesses, but this was the greatest turning point, or where he started to show great development on his wealth, at least economically speaking. Now, Mr. Rockefeller, he observed that many people were chasers, because crude oil was nothing he invented. It's something that existed already, its extraction and methods of extraction, yet it was a very young industry, and there was a lot of things that could have used improvement. And this is where Mr. Rockefeller opened his eyes and allowed infinite intelligence, which is a set of ideas that exist around us that you can capture from the frequency of the universe, shortly put, in order to understand how to improve this and create great wealth. But also understand that there were people that were the chasers, and the chasers were drillers who truly chased luck. They were chasing land where they could find a spot that will have crude oil. And when you're chasing luck, it's driven in a way that you're really hoping to become rich fast. And usually this has a very negative connotation of a poor, generous and kind nature. Therefore, or goal orientation, this often leads to negative results. And he was fast to identify this. He knew that being a chaser, it could give him great wealth if he happened to be lucky to find a spot with the oil. But he was smarter than that. He realized that there were refiners. And he as well did not invent refining of crude oil. This technology existed and was in development, but it was very poorly organized. But the refiners were seeking to reduce costs, to reduce speed, and very importantly, which was the key of success for Mr. Rockefeller, to reduce waste. Think about it for a moment. These guys over here, maybe they find the crude oil, but refiners make much more out of it. And in a moment you will see how much you can get out of it that will end up in a good or generous, kind nature. because this ultimately ends giving more, which is positive, and we could say that is good, generous and kind nature, which leads to positive results. This was the first step that he identified, to not be a chaser, but rather to focus on the great opportunity that existed, because he realized that the current refiners were quite poor in their execution and in their organization, and they lacked discipline. So he saw opportunity in refining crude oil, and this quickly bifurcates into two sides of one coin. This is one coin, the opportunity of refining crude oil. One side of the coin and the other side of the coin say that this one asked or was looking for answering the question how to industrialize refining, or pretty much energy. I will just start by describing that this starts simply with safe transportation of this type of energy, crude oil. We have reducing waste, and lastly, how to make it faster and cheaper, because all of this ultimately gives more yield. As you'll see, this is fascinating. Crude oil back then was being refined in an extremely inefficient way. Here the R stands for refining, and this was gas, gasoline, kerosene, diesel oil, we have fuel oil, and lubricating oil. This is like oil, paraffin, wax, and asphalt as well. And did you know that back then only kerosene was refined? All of the rest was burned or casted away, wasted. And this represented a 40 to 60% of waste of the barrel. This means that from 1 barrel of crude oil you will end up with 50% back of it that will be kerosene. What was kerosene used for anyway, you will ask? Why is this relevant? How is this generous and kind? Something important to know is that kerosene was used for lighting, in terms of illuminating. Back then electricity was still not used for creating light through the light bulb. There were whale oil, animal oil, but these two proved to be very smoky, unreliable, and whale oil was becoming more expensive and less accessible, and the gas, fuel as well, which at times would be explosive, and it led to burning of a house or even cities at times by accident. This is but one side of the coin. I want to make sure I'm not missing out anything here. As you can see, it is a big subject, this, but it is fantastic. It's very interesting. But now we're talking about the other side of the coin. This one, which is that of generous and kind nature mostly. This also is. But the whole idea is that Mr. Rockefeller realized that there was a safety issue. Due to inconsistent types of fueling for the lightning, that people were using whale oil or animal oil or the gas fuel, he recognized that kerosene had to be produced in a more industrialized way, more consistent, more fast, in a cheaper way, with safer modes of transportation. For example, he will introduce using a big car container instead of using barrels to transport more of this in a cheaper, safer way that will also reduce stealing. And this is very important because it was looking for the common folks. This is understanding what people were consuming, and perhaps he also consumed it as well. Kerosene was very easy to manage. It was consistent on the burning, and therefore more safe. This is also taking care of people. With the introduction of higher kerosene production, people would stop then adulterating fuel. You will start to develop better lamps, and safer and more controlled illumination or lighting methods were introduced, which this only gave us less house fires and perhaps urban fires as well. Take in mind, everyone was using a source of heat for illumination. They did not have the luxury of reading comfortably at night, having to have a heating source that could create a burning or a fire. You have to be very careful with this. And with more reliable methods of this type of energy, we can quote, when energy is expensive, people take risks, such as the whale oil and the animal fats and all of this. People will take more risks on using this thing. It could be explosive as the gas fuel, as mentioned earlier. And when energy is cheap and consistent, people behave safely. So you start seeing a change also on a positive paradigm of behaving more safely, which is interesting. It changes the mental program of many people in a subconscious way, because of course all of this is subconscious. It's something that you are being constantly fed on your subconscious mind, the correct use of tools, or that there is more available tools that can help for this. And lastly, this brings us to the most important point, that all of the combination of this led for, therefore, lower prices, which led to mass adoption of people. As this is cheaper, this is available for the common folk. This will create more scale for the demand. More demand creates more jobs. And very importantly, this developed a secondary industry. this last point must be taken into great consideration. See the pattern. You take care of people, you find a solution that solves their needs through something that you can make faster, cheaper, you lower prices, becomes available for everyone starts getting it. The scale of this operation increases. You create jobs that also benefit the common folk, and then you develop this. And where am I going with this? That you can then repeat a cycle with the secondary industry that is developed. I quote from the beautiful book I highly recommend reading, The Richest Man of Babylon, from George S. Clason. Make money your golden slave. Make it work for you. And the children of their children, make them your golden slaves as well. So if this secondary industry develops another one, make it repeat the pattern. Take care of people and make this work for you. That's what Rockefeller did. He repeated this. That's what Ford did. That's what Carnegie did. They realized there was a process that started with chasers, with a negative or poor, generous and kind nature, because perhaps they did not expand their minds. They were not as receptive to infinite intelligence, or their desires were more selfish. They were the chasers who would rather develop a car that was handcrafted and was expensive and only the elite could have, whereas Ford came with the idea of industrializing the manufacturing of the car to make it faster, cheaper, among other positive traits that also allowed the common folk to acquire it. Mr. Andrew Carnegie, he industrialized the processing of steel in a more efficient way, where it will take days. With his processes, it will take much more less, perhaps could be done in less than 1 day, the same process that will take longer. He would focus on make it cheaper, on make it faster. Cheaper does not necessarily mean of poor quality, but taking out unnecessary waste or learning how to refine it, because what Mr. Rockefeller did was to then realize, by asking himself, how come half of the barrel is being thrown away? There gotta be a way for all of this waste, because this was an incognita back then. They had names for it, but they did not have a use, perhaps. So they would literally burn it, cast it away, let it evaporate. And he said, no, there gotta be a way to use it. And he developed more industries out of this. And he repeated this pattern as well for those industries too. That's why he acquired all of this. And ultimately it led to a positive end result of his life. And something extremely important is that we need to understand, first and foremost, he industrialized energy, really. Second, he was smart in knowing how to use generous and kind orientation of goals in a very targeted way. He knew what was the need of people and what was the need of the industry as well, how to make everyone happy and himself. And lastly, he also recognized where to find opportunity, because opportunity came really from the ugliest, from the messiest, and the most boring bottleneck that there was. Because everyone was trying to rush to get the crude oil, but they all struggled to make this a reality. They were all casting away all of this, and they were perhaps just too lazy to do anything about it. And here, on this part, and all of these elements, that's where Rockefeller found great success. And to conclude today's presentation, I would like to give you an exercise. This exercise works best if you have learned by this point how to develop a burning desire for something. If not, you can still practice it, but try to find something that truly passionates you. And the exercise goes as follows. I invite you to see the world around you and notice what is excessive waste that makes your gut feel bad about it. And you will have to ask yourself two things. The first one is how to use it in a generous and kind-oriented way, and just like Rockefeller did, out of the tactical use of generosity and kindness, once you have identified it, you say, how can I profit out of this? Everything is possible, and there's no thing such as getting without giving. You have always to give something, to give, and then one day you will receive, and you will receive much more than you can imagine. One last element I actually jumped to say, and with this I conclude the video, is that through all of this, Mr. Rockefeller developed one of the most important faculties we have, and this is discipline, which we will talk on its own subject or its own video in a couple of days in the future. But this should be something that you must take into account. It takes discipline to do all of this, to not give up, to have persistence, to have faith that you can make this happen. You don't think on how, you just go through life taking the information that infinite intelligence gives you, all of the tools that it will reveal to you through ideas, through seeing opportunities in life, and it will guide you slowly, smoothly through life. I will invite you to perform that exercise, and I believe rather rapidly you will find both patterns in many current figures that are successful and how they apply this principle, and both you will see many places where this can be executed. And don't forget that most of these things come in the ugliest, messiest, and boring bottlenecks that there are. Opportunities thrive there because people lack discipline. I invite you to practice and develop your own discipline. It is invaluable. And with this, I conclude today's presentation. I hope that this content was valuable to you, and I am grateful to have you here. Thank you so much. Be on well.